these materials will be sent to you after this webinar. We present this webinar today thanks to the sponsorship of Triple Jump. They are also in the public here with us today. And this is the final session of two webinar sessions, this being the technical perspective. I do want to add that in addition to the doubts that may arise during this session, we will be having a free consultation period 2 weeks after this webinar. So if you want to have a specific conversation with the specialist of today, have additional questions on the subject, we can help you with that. I want to start today presenting us, who we are, Axis. We are a digital transformation and cybersecurity company. I am pleased you can join us in this event. In Axis, we focus on the principle of value creation. We understand that technological change is not only based on technology, but it's also based on the transformation of the processes and the people that are doing this transformation. We have three main lines of business: digital transformation, where we define the roadmap that determines the most impactful process, the technological solutions to be implemented, as well as the cultural changes that must occur for a successful transformation. We have the cybersecurity vertical, what brings us here today, where we work to strengthen the cybersecurity posture of organizations, trying to prioritize and mitigate strengthening initiatives. And finally, learning, where we seek to strengthen the digital capabilities of employees, seeking to enhance the effectiveness and the impact of their work of the people in the teams. Here are some of the certifications relevant to the topic today. And finally, the speakers that will be joining us. Tell me. The screen shares, is it better now? Okay, great. Well, finally, the speakers. We're having in this session Carlos. Carlos is the leader of the engineering team here with Axis. He has 15 years of experience in the financial services sector, as well as leading information security committees here in Latin America. We will be having as well Victor Cardenas. Victor is the cybersecurity specialist here in the team. So we'll be having a perspective from them today. And just before we start, a small topics review. We'll be starting with the need of financial service providers to adapt their security, how the changing environment requires us to catch up on the cybersecurity risks and what we have to do. The main topic, zero trust as a base of modern security. Why is it important? How can we understand this architecture, this paradigm? Followed by SASE, Secure Access Service Edge, which is a technology, emerging technology that's really promising when we talk about security. We will wrap up with some next steps, how you can check on your security posture and implement these technologies that we're looking at today. So without further ado, Carlos, I'll leave you with the subject so you can lead us in this topic today. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Welcome, everybody. Sebastian, could you?
I'll pass you the presenter right now.
Okay. Okay. We talk about the need of financial service providers to adapt their cybersecurity strategy. Here we have an overview of several points that were topics that were in these are the some a group of topics that enterprises have in their day-to-day business. These businesses are somehow unrelated, but they are in the proportion of which they are approaching the technology, the new technology tendencies, and well, there is like a vortex that are approaching more and more these businesses to the center of more demanding technology and security needs. But what happened when this pandemic came? Well, digital transformation became the first priority from one day to another. Suddenly, we had remote work as a priority, as a necessity. Regulatory restrictions were not in the same pace as the technology that changed from one day to another. There were market changes, very sharp market changes. Business continuity was the priority from very suddenly, and cybersecurity, of course, was also a big concern that we weren't prepared to because we have another model or another work model. What happened with the channels? There were new ways to contact the customer. It was not presential anymore. We had to get used to agent networks, to onboard customers remotely, to enhance call centers. We have to use the data in different ways. The management of credit risk, the design of improved products, and a better customer relationship management in a new panorama, totally new scenario. We have to make product diversification in order to meet the new customer demands, the changes that the customer needed, make third-party services available for our customers and for even for our employees, diversify and offer a range of several services that weren't available before. We have to be more flexible with our core systems to develop the ability to evolve and adapt in more agile IT systems. Let's take, for example, remote work. How we done it currently? Before the pandemics, the policies, the technology, and the processes were office-centric. We assumed that most of the users, most of the employees worked from the office, and the remote workers were somehow the exception or a minority. It depended from business to business. But one day everything changed, and remote workers was not more the exception, was the day-to-day used to way to work, and office workers were the exception. So we have to change those policies that consider the remote workers as an exception. We had to work about the technology that protected mainly the office workers, and was not a very concerned maybe for the remote workers because they were a minority. But now they are most of the workers are remote, so the technology has to be prepared to secure all these remote workers. And the processes, what happened with the processes also have to consider that the workers are no more at the office, so but at home. And we had to bring a service to them that has to be at the same time secure and reliable. Then it was a big challenge that maybe we are still in the way to improve to the desired state. What about new digital communications? Can our customers can tell when it's real or fake? Phishing attacks have changed. Well, we have before there was they had this appearance maybe were somehow easy to recognize in an email, but now not only by email, but now with SMS, with social network messaging through chats, even by voice, etc. So our customers capable of recognize our real communications now that we depend on these communications more than the physical interaction. So what are the biggest problems in terms of fraud prevention? According to a study from AppGate, which is a company who brings several services and cyber threats intelligence. Today's fraud schemes evolved too quickly for us to keep the pace, was 60% of the respondents. We know that fraud always evolves, and it's difficult to keep the pace, to be to be one step ahead of the fraudsters. But nowadays they are even more technological, and they're evolving quickly, and it's more difficult than before to keep the pace. For example, we have all heard about artificial intelligence for discovering threats. Nowadays, so maybe some of us are using already artificial intelligence in order to discover threats, cyber threats, and fraud schemes, of course. But nowadays, fraudsters are using also artificial intelligence. So if we aren't using artificial intelligence to discover threats, and our attackers, the fraudsters, are using artificial intelligence, we are not just one step ahead, behind, but maybe several steps behind them, and we have to retake these trends. Our customers and partners have lacked sufficient awareness to protect themselves from social engineering fraud schemes. So, scheme awareness is a key topic that we have to develop, to enforce, to make more robust, in order to help our customers and our employees make the distinction between the real communications that we need to be agile and quickly answered, and the fraudsters and the cyber attacks. So there is a big challenge in terms of fraud prevention, and we have to choose the right technologies, choose the right awareness programs in order to keep this pace against the continuous this continuing fight against the fraudsters, against the cyber attackers. Latest studies show that many MFI employees are not ready to avoid cyber attacks. Only 80% are aware of the existence of cybersecurity policies. Only 60% know their responsibility as part of the cybersecurity plan. 58% does not agree with the statement the bank provides regular cybersecurity trainings. So we have to find a way to make this awareness more effective. How can we make this awareness more effective? In order to the employees to be not only to recognize that there are trained, like in this last question, but to be effective in discovering, in recognizing the cyber attacks, the phishing, the social engineering schemes. Well, we need, of course, a holistic cybersecurity strategy. We need to choose the right people to enhance that resilient culture, to improve early detections, and to report potential attacks. So we need that people not only to detect or recognize fraud schemes, but also to report these potential attacks. The processes, we need the right set of processes to strengthen the defenses and decrease operational interruptions. And the technology, we need the right tools in our organization to prevent attacks and to discover in a quick way all these threats. In addition, international regulations are updating and demanding an update of our cybersecurity measures. We have the GDPR, which is more demanding each year, I think, about the protection of the privacy and the personal identifiable data. We have also the PCI data security standard for those who work with credit and debit cards, digital payments security controls, several regulators, national regulators that can that change their regulation more frequently and are each way, of course, more demanding. And we have several regulations that are arising in all the world, literally. Okay, let's listen to Victor for this for the following topic.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Well, good afternoon for you, I understand. For us, it's still good morning. Let me share my screen to show the presentation. Okay. Sorry. Oops. No, okay. Thank you. So today I'm going to be presenting to you the Zero Trust as base for modern security topic. We are going to discuss some basic details, basic approach from this framework that has been developed by NIST and is now one of the biggest trends in cybersecurity, especially when you are designing a network and resource access to in a network in a company. So first, I would like to start by defining what is zero trust. And to understand what is zero trust, we need to first know that the enterprise infrastructure is complex. The enterprise infrastructures have been evolving from many years, and a single enterprise might have or might operate several internet networks. They might have remote offices, remote workers, abroad, a variety of users that can be company workers. They can have maybe some contractors, providers, guest users. All of them are trying to access the company resources from several devices. Maybe some of them have a company device, a company managed device, or maybe some of them have the rights to access from a personal device. And also the resources they are trying to access might be in different locations. Some of them might be in the company network, some of them might be in the cloud, or even a broad variety of clouds, public clouds, private clouds, etc. So what is the challenge? The challenge is to identify where is the perimeter. So where should we put our effort to apply the cybersecurity? And the answer is the perimeter is everywhere. So we cannot define a single perimeter. And that's the difference between the traditional approach and the zero trust approach. So the zero trust model, what is showing us or what is giving us is an architecture, a model to define that, and to first of all to understand that trust must be given based on the evaluation of every session that every user is going to get to access some resource. And this is an end-to-end approach. So it's constantly changing, it's constantly being updated, and it has to be universal inside every enterprise. So I just mentioned that there is a traditional approach, and there is now this zero trust approach. What are the differences? What are those differences? Well, in the traditional approach, what we used to do, we used to have a network where once some user device get access to the network, they have complete visibility and complete access to all the resources. And of course, it brings us an immediate problem that if something is compromised inside that network, all the network is susceptible to get compromised. So this doesn't extend also the security to what happens when we have something in the cloud, when we or now when our workers start working from home in a lot of cases. So those are the traditional main problems with the traditional approach. And what Zero Trust does is try to change this by applying the secure access to all the applications whenever they are, and also whenever the user is, whatever device the user is using, and also knowing the context of the users, even all the other parameters being the same. If some context of the user is changed, also immediately the rights of the user must be changed. So, what is or why is Zero Trust relevant? Okay, Zero Trust, of course, has a lot of benefits. The first of them is that they reduce threat surface, because now we are trying to try to reduce the size of a potential break that could be done. Because if something is compromising the network, it will be compromising only one device or one user, and it's not going to extend to the all of the network. So what else? Now with Zero Trust, we might have maximized use and authority of authentication. We can and we want to extend the authentication and authority, the identification in general of every user in the infrastructure. Also, we have increased visibility into all user activity, and not only visibility, but also a registry of everything that is happening on our infrastructure. We might get the ability to dynamically provide access based on a current use case. This has to be alive, has to be able to constantly change in function of what is happening, as I said, in function of the context. And also, of course, we want to reduce the attacker ability to move laterally within your organization. Some numbers, only 35% of organizations have started deploying Zero Trust, and 52 of them almost half of them have implemented zero trust partially, not in a mature state. But the ones who have done this correctly have 42% lower average cost in a data break. I mean, all of these come to this main benefit. So, what is the philosophy? Where the zero trust is, or what are the pillars to implement a zero trust model? As in most of the cybersecurity approach, we have three pillars mainly: the people, the processes, and the technologies. So, what is the work of every one of these pillars in this approach? In the case of the people, of course, we're talking about the technical team, maybe that is going to implement this approach. They have to be trained. They have to be aware of the safer or of the safe behavior and how to deal with this approach. And we have also the technology or technologies that have to be implemented in order to get this model running. We're talking about a lot of different maybe technologies that we have to make convert in this model. And of course, we have to maybe modify our processes too, because if we only have the people and if we only have the technologies, we are not going to get the model implemented, because all of them are work together when they are in a single process. Now let's talk some more technical stuff. This is the zero trust basic approach, where in which we have first two different sites, let's say, the untrusted zone and the trusted zone. And what zero trust says is that we have to have in the middle a policy decision or an enforcement point. This is the technology, and that is going to the technology and the processes that is going to be implemented to differentiate what is untrusted and what should not access to some resource or application, and what or who should get access to that resource or application. And that decision might be made in function of not only of the user, not only of the device, but also on the context. What are the principles? All data sources and computer services are considered resources. So we're not talking just about maybe the most critical server, but we are talking about all the resources in the company, all the data sources or the computer services. Another principle: all communication is secure regardless of network location. What it means is that it doesn't, or it matters, but we have to take it into account if the user is in the network, if the user is at home, or if the resource is in the cloud, is public, is private, etc. The access to individual enterprise resources is granted on a per session basis. This is most important. If some user gets access to a resource now, that doesn't mean automatically that in the next hour or minute they must have the same access to. Every decision of the access to a resource should be made in a per session base. Also, access to resources is determined by dynamic policy. A dynamic policy is something that takes into account the context. I mean, if, for example, if the user, if something in the device has changed, if something in the policy or in the rights that a user has changed, these have to be reflected on the enforcement of the policy immediately. So that's a dynamic policy implementation. We have to be able to monitor and measure how is this working. All the resources and authentication and authorization should be dynamic also. And of course, we want to get a detailed log of everything that happens in this model. So going one step more, how we how do we differentiate these two main points that are the policy decision and the enforcement point of our implementation? And the policy decision point might even, first of all, the policy decision point is implemented in the control plane. And the policy enforcement endpoint or point is in the data plane. So those are different in those different layers in those different planes. And the policy decision point has two main components. The first of all is the policy engine, that is the component that is responsible for the decision of what access should be granted to every user and every resource and every device based on every context. And that policy engine passes then the responsibility to establishing or shutting down some communication to the policy administrator. That is the component that directly talks to the policy enforcement point. That is the one that actually gives or denies the access in the network or in the resource we are trying to give access. So these are the components. We also have these contextual components that can be given as the context, the context, or be getting the logs from all the systems. For example, we have we can have here maybe the identity management systems, the logs, the CM, like the logs collector, some threat intelligence to know what is happening, what is changing on the network, and a lot of more data sources that can give us the knowledge required to get and to deny some access. Well, and last, zero trust works best in many of the common scenarios for financial institutions. So what are some common scenarios here? Well, enterprise with satellite facilities or branches, contracted services or non-employee access, enterprise with customer-facing services, multi-cloud, collaboration across enterprise boundaries, all of them that are scenarios that are common in the financial institutions are totally compatible and required to operate with zero trust. So that's all for now. I don't know if there are some questions, and if you have some question, please let us know in the Q&A. And if there is not, we can continue to the next part.
I don't see any questions for the moment. I can give you, Carlos, the control so you can share again your screen.
Okay, thank you. I will continue then with the next topic, which is Secure Access Service Edge, or SASE. We are all familiar with the shift in the IT landscape. Users, devices, applications are everywhere. There is an evolving perimeter. We have talked that we are not more office-centric. We have many remote users, personal mobile devices, IoT devices, cloud applications, hybrid infrastructure, cloud infrastructure. So, and how we organize, orchestrate all these devices, all these sources of information, and to keep it, as we said, to keep it reliable and secure. The SASE is a technological solution that has high expectations in the strengthening of cybersecurity practices. According to Gartner, the enterprise perimeter is not longer a location. It's a set of dynamic edge capabilities delivered when needed as a service from the cloud. So this is the philosophy of SASE, not just an enterprise perimeter, no more perimeter. A group of the services available to employees, to users, delivered when needed. Each one managed individually, but at the same time with a direct connection from user to the service. The benefits of SASE are a reduced cost and complexity. So maybe we have several access points now. We have one access point that is more reliable, so costs begin to download. It applies a zero trust tenants. This technology, SASE technology, is using all the concepts of zero trust. Ensures consistent policy. If we have a center point of access, we can deliver policies that we don't have the risk to have several versions of policies, so we have a consistent policy. New digital business scenarios are enabled. The staff effectiveness is improved. We have, as we told, a centralized orchestration of the different services, and of course, a secure remote access based on zero trust and based on consistent policies. A seamless user interaction because the user has direct access to the services, and increased network performance. The state right now is that only 19% of organizations have plans to deploy SASE in the next 12 months. 94% of IT leaders don't understand the relationship within SASE and software-defined WAN. 45 organizations prefer a centralized security and single point of entry. So organizations prefer the concepts that come with SASE, but they are still in an initial stage of implementation. What is the composition of a SASE architecture? We have three, we can talk about three main components. Connectivity, based on software-defined WAN and remote access, security, and identity. These are the main components. We will talk about each of them. Connectivity, the components of this connectivity, the LAN, the local area network, the wide area network, the software-defined area network, the hybrid one, the remote access. Nowadays, this is a main connectivity path, and a proxy, which will centralize all the communications, and the software as a service direct access. These are the ways that connectivity are the foundations for connectivity in a SASE architecture. Security, you have the wireless encryption to be sure to use the right protocols, and of course these protocols are encrypted in a robust way. Secure gateway, cloud delivered firewall, not a physical device now, but a cloud delivered firewall that will enforce the policies, the security policies for all the organization. The cloud access security broker, or CASB, that improves the access, the security of the access, and also the traceability of it. DNS, layer security, remote browser isolation, DLP on all the organization and in all places, not just in the office, but also when you are working remotely or even in public networks. Malware detection and blocking, sandboxing, encryption. The components to enforce zero trust, one of them is identity, which is based on zero trust, but it's a component of the SASE architecture also. We have here the implementation of multi-factor authentication, dynamic segmentation, ZML, trusted devices, policy for specific applications. That's very important and very it's very important for securing our applications to apply specific policies for each application, not just as could be in a traditional remote access. In a traditional remote access, you bring a policy for entering the network, the internal network, and then you have the same rights for all the services, all the applications. But now with SASE, you can establish a differentiated policy for each application, not just one policy for all the internal network, but for every application. Automated device blocking, IDP integrations, and continuous verification. So the benefits of SASE architecture for the securing and reliability of our services is improved greatly, and it's really in our current way of working, that is remote, is essential to secure against the new cyber threats that are arising. which are the next steps? Well, we have the National Institute of Standards and Technology has released a standard that guides about the implementation of the zero trust architecture in a 7 steps transition into this model. First step, to identify actors on the enterprise, to know who are those who are relating with technology, identify assets owned by the enterprise. Well, this is very well known, the asset inventory or to know we cannot protect if we don't know what to protect. So we have to have an inventory of the assets, identify key processes, and evaluate risks associated with executing processes. Formulate policies for the zero trust architecture candidate and identify those candidate solutions. So based on our needs, based on our assets and our actors, our key processes, we will have a profile that can identify the candidate solutions for zero trust architecture. To make an initial deployment and monitoring of the solution and expand the zero trust architecture for all the organization. We have to define an action plan, identify the steps to start the initiative, and set milestones and a timeline. We must begin by evaluating our current tools and capabilities, define the hardware inventory, define the software inventory, and the critical processes. Then select the candidate process and launch implementation. So this could be the order or the roadmap to this type of implementation. Always we will begin by evaluation and asset inventory. Okay, so this is what we wanted to talk about for today. There are some questions. We are gladly answer to them.
One concept, Carlos, we many times hear is that this zero trust architectures, these SASE solutions, sound like expensive. Like it's something that's maybe not so acquirable for small to medium-sized businesses. But this parting is just not necessarily correct, right? I don't know if you can expand how we can get these solutions without this problem.
Yes, that's right. There are some solutions that are expensive, but nowadays there are many solutions that are centered that focus on the size or on the quality of services and the quality of users, so they can adjust the budget to the real size of the enterprise. Because what we want to protect are the inventory of the assets inventory inside the organization and the users and employees that we want to access in a secure way. So if we have the right solution, we take into account this complexity of the organization and can be in a affordable budget. It doesn't need to be too expensive.
Right. So I think for the moment, we're not having any more questions. Just to wrap up, I do want to thank you all for joining us in today's session. This content has been recorded and will be shared with you so you can review it later if you want. And finally, I did want to remind you that we're having this following 2 weeks for consultation for any doubts that may arise. Maybe you want to deepen these topics, you want to know how your organization specifically can apply this. So we will be sharing via email the contact so you can send your questions, but I'm also sharing in the chat right now if you want to take it. If you want to write us right now, questions you've thought of. Thank you very much for your participation, and we hope you have a great afternoon. Hope to see you soon. Have a good day.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.